Welcome to today's episode of What to Say and How to Say It, the podcast to help you fix your marriage. Here's the deal. Today we are all about the respectful wife life. I have a very special guest today. Her name is Madison Agostini. She is the rocker of the Respectful Wives Club. This lady can run a social group of 20,000 people, and let me tell you, she's excellent at it. Her official title at Greater Impact is Cruise Director. Actually, she does all of our graphic design and runs some of our groups, and she is astonishing. She's hilarious and wonderful to be with. We're going to chat about some questions that came out of her Respectful Wives Club, and we're going to talk about her experience leading women in this space because that's a rodeo, as you know. So, guys, you might be off the hook today, but if you want to listen in and glean some insight into the female mind, which maybe you just are like, no, I'm done, as I say that out loud. But maybe not. Maybe you want to hang out and glean some little pointers on what's going on in that female brain that you're attached to emotionally, spiritually. We want to send you over to our website, greaterimpact.org. There's a marriage assessment there. And you can find out if you should be doing mentoring with us or if you got a hot mess you need to fix and or anything in between. But it'll give you some clues. And the survey, the assessment is basically database. So, anything that shows up there for you is like, ooh, four horsemen of the apocalypse style. Let's take some action. So anyway, go find out how you're doing. Greaterimpact.org. Madison, girl,
Hey,
so good
girl.
to see you. Oh my word. So you just ran another successful group of the Respectful Wives Club.
I did. Another round of the Respect Dare is in the books.
And what was that like for you guys?
It's one of my favorite things to do. I got to be honest with you. It's one of the most challenging things I think that exists out there for Christian marriage. Um, it will push you to your limits and beyond, but gosh, we have fun while we're doing it.
I love that. Yeah. Well, and I think we need to stop being a bunch of pansies. Like we need to grow up, ladies, and stop being so wishy-washy and getting our feelings hurt and take some agency, take responsibility for some of the not so awesome contributions we're making in our marriage. And do
Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
Yeah. It's not fun to have to realize how much we really have contributed to the mess we're in sometimes.
Mhm.
But it's really important to take that look. And we did just do that. And I typically do one around every Valentine's Day. It's the perfect time of year to say, hey, give your husband the gift he really wants
Mhm.
this Valentine's Day. Men want respect
Yeah.
maybe more than anything else. Nina, you've said it more perfectly than anyone else. Maybe their number one thing is sex, number two is a sandwich, but really, respect is truly the number one as far as day-to-day life goes.
Mhm.
And it's, I think, the thing that women struggle with the most.
Yeah, and I did too, honestly. Like I grew up in a culture that respect was to be earned. And you got what you got, man. You don't deserve my good treatment. And the Lord grabbed me up by the bootstraps one day and he's like, so excuse me, um, these people are precious to me. And are you actually a respectful person? Because it's not about what they deserve. I sent my son while they were still sinners. And I thought that was kind of a brutal way to put that, but he's always right. So there's that. You can't really argue with that. It was an eye-opening moment. He's not wrong. And so I kind of made it my life's mission, and along with several other things, to really become a respectful person.
Yeah, and I mean, we did choose these men to marry and spend the
Uh-huh.
rest of our lives with. I mean, it's one thing to choose to be a respectful person with strangers and, people
Mhm.
we go to church with and our friend group and coworkers, but sometimes it can be more difficult to be kind and pleasant with the person you say you love more than anyone else on earth.
Mhm.
They get under our skin probably more easily than anyone else, but they're also the most deserving, even if we feel like they haven't earned it or they don't deserve it.
Yeah,
They're the person we've chosen to spend our lives with. So they deserve the effort.
exactly. And it's astonishing to me what God will do with our obedience. You know, we communicate our love back to the Lord through our obedience. That's scriptural. And then he can do something with that. And you know, I think when I wrote the respect there, I didn't have the awareness that you also need boundaries in relationship. Um, which that was really dumb looking back on this, you know, so many years later, I'm like, oh, but that wasn't supposed to be in that book. It's a book on self-sacrifice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's always interesting for me to have this conversation with you because I think I am the number one advocate of the respect dare. I always will be. And
Yeah, probably.
even when you have your moments of like, cringe, I'm like, no, this book, it changes lives. It's amazing. It was meant to be, what it is, and it still is doing its thing. I
Hmm.
was thinking earlier today that the respect dare is like a cleanse, that when people decide they're going to listen for real, when people decide they're going to change their lifestyle, they're like, morbidly obese and they're going to become healthy, right? You can't
Yeah,
just make that switch overnight.
right.
You've got to do like a complete cold turkey of these horrible things that you've been doing. And
Well,
the respect there is kind of like that in the area of respectfulness, because a
mhm.
lot of us have some really bad habits that we're not even aware of.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it shines this huge spotlight on it, and it makes it very black and white. For the next 40 days, do not do these things or do, these certain things. And it makes
Hmm.
it very clear, easy to follow. 40 days, come on, pedal to the metal, you can do it. But then, after the 40 days, then what?
Yeah.
Because it's not meant to be a lifestyle.
Right.
Um, we're
I love
not we're not a doormat factory here where
exactly.
we're just creating women who never speak up for themselves ever again. Like you
Hmm.
said, it's an exercise in self-control, learning the ability to not say every single thought that pops into your head,
Hmm.
which I still have not mastered, by the way, on whatever round number this is.
Well, and I'd like to think I'm good at that, but you know, we're female, and so there's a lot of thoughts about a lot of things, and they're all connected. So there's that. You know, listening to you now, I have these just these flashes of the respecter being a cleanse, and then oh my goodness, and you get dying to self. Like, what kind of fun is that? I did a cleanse once, and I had diarrhea for like 3 or 4 days, and I stopped because I couldn't do it. But your women like get through this thing. And they power through it, and it does impact their relationships. But I love the fact that you want to talk about, well, what's next? Because the point of the book, I think, is to become blameless, to clean up our side of the street in our relationship, to understand what it looks like to not be so stinking selfish, to see our husband as precious to God. And then some of the other work, like we do in Strength and Dignity or at the conference, then becomes useful where you've got, you know, helpful boundaries. And then you can ask for things in the relationship. So you start building something from that. But it is absolutely a great slate wiper, we'll say, so that you can clear the slate and let's do
Yep.
stuff moving forward.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And when you're doing the respect dare with us in the Respectful Wives Club in like a 40-day marriage challenge format, you're not out there all by yourself, like Bridget Jones style, like all
Yeah.
by myself. You have people going through whatever challenge of the day is.
Mhm,
You
mhm.
know that you can log on and every other woman is experiencing, if not the same, similar to what you're going through. And the comments, it's the most hilarious comment section you will experience in your life and the most relatable. But at the end of the 40 days, it can leave you with a feeling of like, uh, okay, now where do I
Now
go
what?
from here? And the
Yeah.
group doesn't cease to exist. I was kind of explaining this to someone the other day. the group is most active when we have a challenge going on, but
Mhm.
it's active year round, whether we're doing a challenge or not. And it's a safe place and a fun place for Christian married women to be able to interact. And,
Yeah.
but while the challenge is going on, we have that support. As soon as that 40 days is over, you might sort of feel like, what's the next step here? How do I navigate this? Especially when you find yourself in that next conflict
Yep.
or that next conversation. And you literally would love to have like a Nina Rosner right here on your shoulder that would tell you what to say and how to say it.
Yeah, well, that's all the growth process, right? You get to the next milestone and then it's like, okay, what now? And I think that's pretty common. But for those of you that are looking for the Respectful Wives Club, you can find it on Facebook. You just type that into your search bar and you will find it. You just ask to join, and then Madison will talk to you about these things and then get you going in the group. And she's masterful. Like, one of the things I really appreciate about you is how you create community for these women. And I know that's a personal passion of yours, is helping people connect and not feel alone in this process. Can you talk about that for a second?
Oh, for sure. So I have realized that there is so much truth in this that shame dies when stories are told in safe places.
Mm,
And I think that it is just a byproduct of the Christian community. We're not doing it on purpose, but when all of us are trying to live our good and Christian Christ like lives, it's just a byproduct of that, that we don't tell everything about ourselves to everyone.
yeah,
We don't air the dirty laundry, if you
yeah.
will. We can be screaming at our husband and whacking our children in the back seat on the way to church. But as soon as that minivan rolls up and those doors slide open, we are slapping those smiles on instead of slapping those heinies in the back. And it doesn't make us fake necessarily. Sometimes it just makes you appropriate. Not to bring
Yeah,
all of your things to every environment. So,
right.
that's okay. But you have to have someone where you can be your authentic self and
Hmm.
where you can talk about these things. And I
Yeah.
think for Christian married women, there is a severe lack of space for that.
Yes.
It is almost, I think, probably similar to how for Christian married men, there is not a space to talk about some of their personal struggles because of
Hmm.
what an embarrassment it would be and what a shame it would be to
Yeah.
have to admit, I'm struggling with this, even though every other man in the room would be like, yep, me too. It's
Hmm.
the same for us. We're struggling with our mouths and we are struggling with our attitude and we are struggling with our mommy martyrdom. And I'm the one doing everything around here. And if you don't have someone else in your life that you can share that with, and that's going to give you the right perspective in that
Hmm.
and not just allow you to wallow in it, that's all you're going to do is wallow
Hmm.
in it. And it's not healthy for you or your marriage.
Exactly. That's one of the first things we teach people in the Strength and Dignity curriculum is don't complain about this. Learn how to talk about what you're dealing with as a mature woman, which means that you're not bad mouthing, gossiping, slandering, hello, because those are sin. And by the way, you picked the guy you married. So what does that say about you? And then just saying, like, and no, he didn't change overnight. Like, most of these guys were this way, have been this way. Like, they just are. And we picked them anyway because, and probably because we could successfully breed with them and we found them attractive and they had a decent job and all the things that matter to women. And maybe there was some soulmateness in there. Like, I don't even know what that is, but the the connection that you can create through friendship that is totally possible and is the God honoring goal of marriage is really what we should be thinking about, is how do I navigate this problem that I've got in a way that brings God's glory to the forefront of any of my communication. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
It is invaluable. I mean, I don't know how many conversations I've had with other women that since going through this growth myself, I'm able to offer the perspective, when they're bringing their scenario that their husband snapped at them.
Mhm.
How often does that happen? I mean, how often are we snapping at our husbands?
Yeah.
All the time. But years ago, my response probably would have been, "Oh, how rude! That guy is such a jerk. You can't let him talk to you that way." Where now you can have more of a perspective of what was the circumstances at the time,
Mhm.
and is this an ongoing everyday thing? Because if it is, then how can this be addressed in a
Right.
mature way? What
Yeah.
boundaries can you set to not allow yourself to be mistreated in a way
Mhm.
that is wrong?
Right.
It's not a license to allow men to stomp around and treat us any old way they want to, but
Mhm.
they're human beings too.
Right.
And we often have an expectation of them that we're not even carrying out for ourselves.
Exactly. I see that all the time. One of the questions I ask couples that come to us for the marriage transformation, which is our 6-month marriage program, is, what's going on in your marriage? And they paint this picture always of their spouse and how terrible they are. And one of the common things that, the women say to me is that, well, he doesn't look at me like he loves me and he's grumpy with me. And, and I'll listen to that for a minute. And maybe the men will say that too, by the way. She doesn't respect me and she doesn't look at me like she wants to be with me and she's, grumpy with me and all these things. And then I'll ask the question, so are you giving to your spouse the thing that you want in return? And there's always silence that follows that question. And then I say, there's no judgment here. Like, I'm not judging you. I'm just asking you, are you, not to quote Gandhi, but, are you being the change you want to see in the world? Like, and most of the time the answer is no. Okay. So then let's talk about who you are in Christ. Because if you're an instrument of Christ's love, if your identity is Christ, then you move forward in that energy. And then you apologize for the stupid, rotten, sinful things you do because you're gonna do these things. You own it, you take responsibility, and then you can change your relationship. But when people are all about how terrible the other person is, you can't get there from here. Like you just can't. And the thing that people don't realize about that is that by blaming my spouse, I'm aligning with the accuser, who's the enemy. And so now I'm following the enemy. And that's an astonishing thought for people is like, wait, no, I'm not. Well, you're not doing it on purpose, but you are doing it because guess what? You contributed it to that conversation in a way that helped it continue or at least didn't produce something productive. And maybe you're doing everything you know, but you don't know everything you're supposed to here. And there's no judgment in that, but how about let's be open to learning something new? And so the next step with this, let's do the respect there. Let's wipe the slate clean. And then let's move into strength and dignity. Let's go to the conference. Let's do a marriage transformation. Let's keep moving forward because just because we think a little differently, if we don't consistently act in ways that actually produce fruit, we're not going to get any. And that's really the simple truth of all of that.
Well,
So,
and the key word there too is consistency, because we
yeah.
would like to think that we have behaved well so many times.
Hmm.
But if there was really, if you had to put a tally mark down or something every time, you did keep your mouth closed or whatever, you'd be shocked that it was like one tally mark. And here you are thinking in your mind, like, I've been doing everything right for a year. You literally behaved right one time. So
Hmm.
you're expecting a whole heck of a lot from the other person when you're not holding up your end of the bargain either.
Well, and when we put that energy towards looking at their side of the street, the planks, the specks in their eye, and we got all this junk on it, like you can't do anything about that. But you can change your relationship by what you do with yourself. And you're not a victim unless you choose to be one. Even in the most heinous, awful situations, people can choose to show up differently and change that. And I see it all the time with people that have filed for divorce, been separated, domestic violence, addictions, you name it. We see God put those marriages back together in a healthy way. And that is what he wants. That's his will for his people. And we can't achieve that if we're still following the enemy. So, anyway, you had some questions from your people. that
Yeah, so we
kind of
actually opened it up in the group today for any lingering questions that still might be out there after the challenge has ended or things that have come up recently. So, yeah, I actually do have a couple that I wanted to bring up in the conversation today. So, this should be sort of fun. Okay, so the first one says, how do I encourage my husband to be more reliable and timely with tasks rather than emasculating him by taking over and doing everything myself?
oh man.
I
Yeah,
love this.
I do too. Yeah, right. So I'm assuming you want me to answer that.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So I love that she has the awareness that it's emasculating, first of all. Hats off. Yes, good job. Stop that.
A gold star.
Yeah, because you don't want to do that to him. It removes all the motivation he's going to have to do something later next time, all of it. Like, stop. So when you ask your husband to do something, you ask him, "Hey, is this a good time to ask you about taking care of something, around the house or, in the garage or in the backyard or whatever?" And he's going to say, "No, I'm in the middle of something." And you want to respect that because you're not going to get any kind of forward movement if it's not a good time to even ask. So start
Yeah.
then when it is a good time, and you can say, "Well, can we talk about it after dinner?" He'll probably say, "Well, yeah, sure." Because you've just respected him, you're going to get a yes. So then after dinner, "Hey, is this a good time still to talk about the thing?" And he's going to say, "Sure, what's up?" And if you're prescriptive in how you ask, if you're like, "Well, I think we need to blah, blah, blah." No, you just bring a problem to a man. The ladder's down here. It's in the way. I keep tripping over it. I don't know what to do. Now, maybe you have a great idea about hanging it from the ceiling, but really what you want is for the ladder to be out of the way, right? You bring the problem to the man and then you leave him alone. You let him solve it however he wants to. And maybe he'll do it poorly to start. But you ask him, can you do something with this? And then you don't offer a bunch of suggestions. You just ask him, can you do something about this? And then you leave him to do his thing. But before that, you say, so my guess is you're going to need some time for this. When should I follow up with you? If he has a history of being someone who doesn't take action on stuff, it may be how you're asking and how you're mothering him, because nobody likes to be mothered. He's going to not want to do that if you're doing that. But maybe it's something else. Maybe you've been respectful. Maybe he just doesn't do stuff. So you ask him, how do you want me to follow up around this? Like, how much time do you think you need to deal with this so I can just know when to stop thinking about it? And he'll say, well, I'll take care of it on Saturday. So, okay, cool. Saturday comes and Saturday goes and he's not done anything. So what you do is you say, you know what, I appreciate so much that you're putting so much thought into how you're going to solve that stupid ladder problem. It means a lot to me. That's what you say, even though he hasn't taken action on it. Because if you're dealing with somebody that is afraid to take action on something, it's usually because the actions they've taken in the past have been criticized. And so we can create an atmosphere of, I don't want to try because I'm just set up to fail. So regardless of what happens, if you're lavish in your approbation and lavish in your praise, I guess it's hearty in your approbation. It's the Dale Carnegie principle. Hearty in your approbation and lavish in your praise. Then you're calling attention to his motivation. And then when he takes care of it, and you might have to wait a couple of weeks, and the Lord's going to use that because you have to think about this. Okay, why would God allow this to be occurring? Maybe I need to learn how to not be critical and judgmental. Because what am I telling myself about this man in this space? What does the enemy want me to think? It's all context for spiritual warfare in our brains. That's the war in, that's the spiritual stuff in the Western world. It's all in our minds. And so you want to do battle in that space. You don't want to show up with the enemy winning. And so Sunday, Monday comes and the ladder's still on the floor and you're still stepping over it. Hey, I know you have a good plan for taking care of this. Do you mind letting me know when it's going to be out of the walkway? Because I almost fell when I had the baby in my arms today, or when I had milk and groceries, or whatever it is. And he can be like, "Oh yeah, I ordered some parts. They should be here this weekend." Okay, thank you so much for letting me know. You're cheerful, joyful around it. He's got a plan. He didn't let you know what it was, but guess what? That's okay. Let him do his thing, let him succeed, because when he does, you can again be like, thank you so much for doing this. Like that is out of the way. And yeah, this is a small thing. It's like people are like, yeah, but what do I do about his porn addiction? It's like you don't have the right to criticize about that when you can't get small stuff like this right. Like stop it. Stop focusing on his sin when you've got planks in your own eyes at that level. Like knock it off. You destroy men. We destroy men with our words. They feel like that 4-year-old boy whose mother has just scolded him, and that sucks the motivation out of him. And that's a brutal truth for a lot of women. But we want to be a princess, not an ogre mom, right? We want to be someone that they want to show up as a knight in shining armor for. And that atmosphere is going to get created through our communication. So when they're reliable, and they are reliable. Like maybe every Tuesday he's taking the garbage can to the curb and you don't have to do that chore. And maybe he misses it 5 times a year and the garbage piles up and he has to deal with that. Whatever. But there's things he's reliable about doing. Maybe he always picks your kid up for soccer. Maybe he always goes to work every day. You start paying attention to those things verbally, you're going to get more of it because whatever you pay attention to grows. You're putting things into the air that are encouraging and build people up, which is what we're called to do. Read First Thessalonians 5. Like there's all sorts of stuff in there about that. And when you do that, you're creating the life that you want and the relationship you want. How's that?
I know there's two follow-up questions that actually came from the group related to this, though, that I'm
Bring
going to
on.
add on to this.
Yeah, yeah.
So, another part of this, what if the scenario is not one like you presented where you can wait?
Mm-hmm.
What if the task is more like you need it done and it can't be on his timetable?
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yeah.
the other, oh, go ahead.
Well, so there's things like maybe he's responsible for paying the bills and he doesn't pay the bills. And so the power gets cut off and the water's cut off. And so what do you do with that? When your kids ask, why don't we have, where's the electricity? And so you call and you say, honey, you just give them the facts. The power has been cut, or the water has been turned off. How do you want me to handle it? And you're not saying anything about his character or anything. You're just bringing the problem and asking, what do you want me to do with this? If it's in his yard of responsibilities, because if he's said, this is my area of responsibility, and then he drops the ball on it, then you're offering to help because you're in the middle of something that now affects you. And you're not criticizing, you're not ranting, you're just, hey, we have a problem. And then he's going to see that it costs another $128 because they had to come back out and turn it back on, and you get the late fee, and he's probably not going to do that again. Or it might take 6 times of that. But how are you going to show up in it, right? So that's one piece of it. Let's say the leak under the sink that he said he was going to fix for the last 4 months turns into a plumbing emergency. Well, guess what? You're there, you call the plumber, you pay the plumber, you leave the bill on his desk. The end. You just handle it and you don't make a fuss about it. Because when you allow someone else to save face, when you're not critical and rubbing their nose in it as if you're punishing them, they change their behavior. They're more motivated to avoid that in the future. Shame is not a motivator. Grace is. So that's a common thing that people deal with, right? In terms of different values with money and different, like she's trying to pay the bills at home and assuming that nothing she's doing is like if she's going and getting her nails done every week, that's $100 a pop. Like, okay, that really that's your drama? Like probably not, but let's say she's not doing anything stupid and extravagant in that space. She's just trying to buy milk and pay the
Right.
water bill and all those sorts of things. That then looks like, okay, we need to set up different financial situation here. So we need a business account and we need a personal financial account. And if there's going to be a loan between one or the other, that gets talked about. And if we can't settle this, then you know what? We're going to have to separate some finances here so that other people learn some self-control. The issue isn't, am I going to be able to do all these things and control somebody else's behavior? The issue is, how do I pray for this person to be connected with the Lord so that they will behave as godly men and stop
Right.
putting their family at risk, right?
Right.
So, from a prayer standpoint, and people are now eye rolling and going, oh, like, what do you expect? I mean, you want to file for divorce over this? Um, Maybe, probably not. Like, there's a whole lot of other ways to approach this. And if you haven't done what we call virtue prayer, where you go in and you put your hands on that man's pillow and you pray the character of Christ and you think the absolute best of him, and then you ask the Lord, what what boundaries do we need here to facilitate some things? And so, when he comes home from work and there's no internet and you're eating mac and cheese for dinner, out of the box, and he's like, what's going on? It's like, I'm trying to manage the household with the money that we have. And so we don't have money for luxuries right now. And yeah, basic food stuff that you love is luxury. We don't have that.
Right. And it takes a strength of self to be able to handle a conversation like that,
Oh yeah.
because the response, a lot of times, it could be an explosive response.
Hmm.
It could be a temper tantrum on
Hmm.
toddler like proportions.
Yeah.
So learning that skill set, like we talked about, of your own self respect and your own emotional control, where you are prepared to set the boundary kind of regardless of what that response is.
Yeah. And it's real simple. I mean, the first boundary we teach all of our customers in the strength and dignity and the marriage transformation, the conference attendees, all of it is have zero conversation when somebody's emotional. Zero. The second boundary is don't kitchen sink your spouse. Don't talk about more than one topic at a time. So what does that look like? It looks like, hey, so he's why are we eating mac and cheese? Why are we have butter and like noodles with margarine? Like, what is this? This isn't dinner. It's like, yeah, sweetheart, there just isn't money. Um, I'm not going to buy things on credit for the home. Um, I don't know how to solve that problem. But, the $17,000 you took out of our savings and our checking account has left us with nothing. And this is what we had. So this is what I made. And then kaboom, right? Well,
Yep.
I don't hang out for kaboom. I'll be like, okay, kids, let's go.
Yep.
Dad needs a minute. Everybody outside. And I'll hustle everybody. Like my kids are adults now, but as if this was happening right now, I that's what I'd say. It's everybody
Yeah.
outside, and I would look at my husband and I'd say, "I love you. I want to talk about this. I understand you're upset. Let's talk about it when we can both be respectful." And then I'd leave. Again, because nothing good is going to happen here.
Yep.
Nothing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and then he's going to be mad that you left, right? He may chase you down. You might need to load the kids in the car and go to grandma's for 3 hours, spend the night even if you're getting the angry texts and whatever, whatever. But then you come back, and this is what masterful married people do is they bracket problem conversations. So that means that I can still be respectful, have fun, love you wildly, and we're going to have a time set that we talk about the icky stuff, and we're only going to talk about it as long as everybody's respectful. And then when they're not, we're going to say, "Hey, well, hold up. We've done really well. Let's take a break. Let's pull this out tomorrow." Okay. And we put it in the box. We set it on the shelf. We go about our day. Hey, you want to go play with the kids in the backyard? Let's go, walk the dog. Let's something. But that's what grown-ups do. All
Yep.
right. And as women, we really struggle with this because our brains are designed for right and left connections. So we see everything being attached and our feelings spew over into all of it, and our feelings rule way too much. And where there's emotion, there is a lack of wisdom. And if we're acting in that emotion, we are ruining our marriage. We are tearing down our homes with our own hands. Stop it. Stop it, stop it, stop it. So the Lord's good. He taught me, and we use this thing called the connection steps because it really helps people connect with Him and process in a whole different way where's the wisdom? What do I do? Because when we're acting out of anger, we're sinning. Stop it. Stop it.
You have time for another question?
Yes, ma'am. Bring it on.
Okay, so this is a really good one, actually. Someone that's just been through the entire 40-day experience and is saying that she is really big on like personal growth and development. And having just gone through this with the Respectful Wives Club, taking care of herself, doing that self care type of stuff, and her own development and all of that. And she says, but my husband could care less.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I think what she means, not necessarily like he could care less that she's doing it. I think maybe for himself is what
Mm-hmm.
she's trying to get at. So how does she handle that? That she's doing all the growth
Mm-hmm.
and we got one stagnant over here.
Yeah,
We've seen
yeah,
this before, Nina.
yeah, yeah, sure have. And I think of Sarah in the Bible, and um, God said to her, "You're gonna have a baby," and she thought that was pretty funny. And Abraham's old, she's old. It was 25 years before she gave birth to Isaac. So what is that? That's like 12 years before she approached her husband to sleep with her maid, right? But what did it look like before then? Every night she's like coming on to him because she thinks this is the time I'm going to get pregnant, like for 12 years or something, really. And then for another,
That's a lot of coming on.
I know, another 12, 13 after that, right? Like, so she's trying to, like, at what point, like, I don't know, she's trying to make all this stuff happen. And the Lord had a time and a place for all of that. And, but the thing that I appreciate about that, because you don't like Abraham's not going to be able to have sex with her unless she's open to that, right? So she's maybe pursuing some, who knows? But the reality is that she's showing up daily. Okay. And so a lot of times, like men change in a different way and at a different rate than women do. And in we judge them for not being the same as us, which is super wrong, by the way. They'll change when they're ready and they'll change when they have to. So what does that look like? Well, maybe he gets a heart condition and then he's going to decide he's going to eat properly. And then he's going to decide he's going to start walking and all those kinds of things. But what do? We want to invite. We want to be open. We want to be there with, and we want to create opportunity. And that's our job as help in that space, not to mother them into it, because if you try to mother it, it won't happen, right? But I guarantee you, if you are hiking with friends on the weekend and you're gone, he's gonna be like, at some point he's gonna notice and he's gonna be like, well, how come you don't invite me? Well, you've said no to me so many times, I just stopped asking. Well, you're gone more times than you're home now. Yeah, I know, I really love it. Well, I might want to get into that. Okay, cool. Come on. I've heard so many stories. Like I have a friend who asked her husband to go running with her every day for every day that she ran, for like 15 years. And the guy just kept telling her no. And it was all these other things about her nagging and criticism and all these. So when she stopped doing all of that, she also simultaneously stopped asking him to go running. And he's like, how come you don't ask me to do that? I bought running shoes. So she's like, all right, let's go. And so they started running together. She had no idea that was coming, but the way that these things work isn't super obvious. So we work on ourselves, we invite, we don't judge, we give grace, and we let God do what God's going to do and the timing he's going to do it in. And we stop making it about us. It's not. So there's that.
And the last and final thing, we've heard this one before too, but it's the doozy of all doozies, the gift that keeps on giving.
Oh, no.
How do we respect when we feel disrespected?
Yeah, I love that question. So I would first start, and this is going to seem kind of deep, but I would first start with, why do I feel disrespected? Like, what's that about within me that needs someone to treat me well so that I can feel respected as a human? because I'm worthy of respect just because I exist. And that sounds arrogant to say, but it is what God says about me, that I'm worthy. I'm worthy of his son's death. How dare I question that, right? So but what in this moment, like what do I really believe about myself that's allowing this feeling to come up? And then may tempt me to sin against this other person. So it's really, it still comes back to what's the work that needs to be done within me so that I can show up differently. Because I had somebody, and I didn't even recognize that it was disrespectful. This happens to me a lot. Somebody will say something disrespectful, and I'll just be like, "Oh, so tell me more about that." As I'm curious about it. And then we explore the whole thing, and then 3 days later, I'll get an apology, and I'll be like, "Huh, I didn't know your intent was terrible there." Like I assume the best about people, and then and it just, it costs me nothing because I don't need them to respect me to feel respected. So if somebody behaves badly, I immediately view that most of the time as that's a they issue. So there's something in them that's coming across to me that is a pain in them, and I'm like, what's going on with you right now? Like I'm curious about that. I don't take it personally. And so, in those places where we take something personally, that's a cue that we have some inner healing work to do. And that's why we do all of that and the other stuff that we do with the strength and dignity and the conference and all of that. Because if you don't heal, you're going to take those things personally. And then you're not going to be the character of Christ. He's not going to rule your heart and interact. Like, think about Jesus. Like, the people that should have known who he was had no clue and then they killed him. Like, really? That's pretty disrespectful. But he's like, on the cross, he says, "Forgive them, Father. They don't know what they're doing." He didn't take any of that personally. He was like, "Yeah, no, like Peter, stop, put the sword away, dude. This has got to happen." Like, no, this is, it's an awareness that is there for us. It's a solid footing that's there. It's an invitation to be so solid in Christ that other people don't hurt you. It's called being unoffendable. And that is what we're invited into. It's a wonderful life, by the way, to not take things personally. So, how do you respect somebody when they disrespect you? Well, first of all, become bulletproof, so solid in your identity in Christ that you don't feel disrespected because of other people's immaturity and lack of skill in communicating. And then, secondly, learn how to love like our Father does. It will change all of your relationships.
I really cannot recommend the strength and dignity course enough as
Mm.
like the next step from having been through the respect dare. Not only because like that was the exact step process that I did. So I'm always going to feel like that's the best way, but it was the perfect segue for me from one into the other.
Hmm.
And I feel like it is just the next perfect thing to do if you've been through the respect dare and you're looking for more and you're wanting to develop that skill set within yourself. I hear you talk about that, and who wouldn't want that for themselves? And the strength and dignity course is really the best place to start with that. And you mentioned the conference as well too.
Yeah.
I was excited to talk to you about that today because we're already in the countdown for the
Yep.
conference.
Yep. And you have a special discount that we'll give people here in a second. But yeah, the conference is a really incredible experience. We're going to do a bunch of deep healing work. All the stuff I talk about in healing and, identity. Like that's what the conference is deep identity work, learning, some of the basics around communication for sure, but in terms of men and women and how to do these things, but primarily, how do I stop reacting?
Mhm.
How do I like this
Why am I
hurt?
so offended all the
Right.
time? Mhm.
Yeah.
So
Like, and then,
defensive.
yes.
Yeah.
What do we do with that? And you can stay stuck blaming the other person for their behavior, but that's on you. And I know that's hurtful to hear for some people. But unless you come to grips with the fact that other people are going to have behavior, learn how to deal with it more effectively. Yes, you've done everything you know. There's a whole lot you don't know. Like, really, you've tried everything you've done, and it doesn't work for a reason. There's stuff you don't know. Like, come on, come learn it. and then change your relationships, because that's what God's inviting you into, is the wonder of connection, the unity that's possible, not just in marriage, but in sisterhood and friendships and all of it. It's so good. So
Yeah, I love the conference. So September, it's coming up in Ohio again this year. And that's not always local for everybody. It is not local for me, but it is a kid-free vacation for me. I get to see you and everybody else that's on staff with us, and it is like one of the best times of the year for me. And every woman that comes, I feel like walks away with that same feeling of having spent a week with their best girlfriends.
Mhm.
And yeah, so you build that community connection, and just the content that is really just life changing, marriage changing content. I really just cannot speak highly enough about it.
Oh,
So
yeah.
they
Well,
did
we
make a
have,
special promo code
yeah,
for
yeah.
us in the Respectful Wives Club, Respect Club 50, and you can use that to register for the conference at greaterimpact.org and get a whatever kind of special deal they have put just for us.
Yeah, I think it has something to do with the number 50. What is the code again?
Respect Club 50.
Yeah, so there you go. And you hop over to greaterimpact.org and snag your seat. Very limited seating. We do it in a small church. It's an intimate gathering. It fills up pretty quickly. So we're going to suggest you go do that sooner versus later. And it's funny you mentioned the connections and the friendships. We have people that meet at the conference for the first time ever that are lifelong friends. It happens every single year. And I'm thinking of some of these people in my head. It's just really beautiful to see what God does there. So, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. It really reminds me, it has like that summer camp vibe, when you're a kid, you go to summer camp. It's like
yeah,
that for grown-ups. It's amazing. Y'all should come.
love that. Thank you. Yeah, we have a good time as a staff putting it on. It's one of the best things we do in a year for sure. So, if you had to give one piece of encouragement to the women thinking about doing the Respect Dare or thinking about moving forward, whether it's with Strength and Dignity or the conference, what piece of advice would you give them?
That's a great question. Um, how do I sum this up in the best way? I myself am, I feel like, continuously going through it. It's a journey that seems so cliche, but you can't expect that you're going to take on any of these things and find an instant fix. That's just not out there. We cannot promise you that, but we can give you the tools that will change your relationships, that
Hmm.
will change the way that you interact with your husband, the way that you interact with God, the way that you interact with yourself.
Yeah.
And they're invaluable. And so if you're willing to put in the work, it really will, it'll change your life and change your marriage.
Yeah. I'm thinking of one of our attendees the first day. She came in, she was mad at her husband, and we did a bunch of stuff, learning and things. She goes, "Well, I'm going to try this tonight." And I'm like, "Okay." So the next day she comes in, and she and her husband didn't talk to each other really much. And they had a half-hour phone conversation, which for them was a game changer. They had not spoken to each other at that level for years, and a half an hour. And then the next night she talked to him even longer, I think. So, right out of the gate, this stuff is usable. So we want to see you unified with your people and God. And that's what we do. We facilitate an environment where that becomes an easy habit to learn and things to do to overcome the things that are in the way. That's it.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
well, thank you so much, Madison, for coming by and talking to us about the Respectful Wives Club and all the great things and the questions your people had. Hope this wraps it up for them. I want to encourage anybody to follow here, click that subscribe button. And if you're on Facebook, be sure to go over to the Respectful Wives Club and try to join. Madison will invite you into that. You'll get going on that thing. And then next year or this fall, whenever it is, she's like, I don't know when she's going to do this again. But when she does, then there you'll be. And there's lots in there already to benefit from. So thank you so much for coming, everybody. We'll see you soon. Be sure to check out the next episode where you can learn more about how to deal with conflict. We'll talk soon.